Hey Kareem, how you doing?
Good.
So this is a bit of an unusual setup. We've sat down today just really to have some loose conversations on what we both do.
What prompted me to ask you to come and have a conversation with me was specifically because we've had a lot of small conversations, and what keeps cropping up is this yin and yang effect of how the successes of your company and the successes of my company really play well into each other towards what clients are doing.
Yes, I think it's, we've had a lot of conversations about the mismatch between having to push, parts of open source and headless development forward.
I've been so impressed with how your team is starting to put together headless projects that don't seem as complex as headless has seen so far. When our clients have come to us at Crowd Favorite, we've had lots of conversations about when is the right time to choose a headless platform, a decoupled platform. And usually it's around performance, but the stumbling block has always been around total cost of ownership. It feels like you're starting to chip away at that complexity.
Yeah, I think we're working on it. So the way that we have always seen headless is it feels like an inevitability in some way. Like it's coming down the pike and we're going to have to deal with it as a community, as a space. And so the goal for us has always been essentially how can we deliver what has been delivered in the past on monolithic solutions, whatever that may be, on headless or in a composable way at least, that isn't breaking the bank and isn't like throwing everything out of whack. So what I mean by that is that there's a number of like process type things that we've done, that we've built up, I suppose, to ensure that we're able to actually come close to what a monolithic sort of build timeline would be. How
do you marry the long-term sort of bomb-proof delivery experience of Crowd Favorite?
Yeah.
Where the enterprise needs solutions that are scalable, that are
resilient.
that are resilient, that have a delivery workflow that works for their teams. But then how do you innovate using things like headless and decoupled, where, to be honest, it's felt in the last few years like it's a hit and miss. It's been tricky. It's experimental, right? Yeah,
it's been very, I think there's no framework laid for this stuff. So it's like there's a lot of just making it up as you go along as an agency who's trying to not only sort of develop the technology, but also you're trying to get it to a point of production ready and once again resilience that it's working for clients. So there's been a lot of pushing against boundaries to get here, but I think immediately as you're saying that, my brain is screaming composable, 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 but we'll get there.
No, so let's dig into that for a second, because I'm going to ask you the questions that our clients ask us when we start talking about decoupled or headless. But one of the things that we've talked about online before we got in the same room was the word composable is starting to get the same problematic definition as the word WordPress. We know in the WordPress world, it means anything from a blog to the architecture of the Walt Disney Company and everything in between, right? Composable these days, everybody's using it in a different way. I've assumed that composable means we're taking open source as a hub, and then we're saying there's some things that are best done by open source, some things that are best done by SaaS platforms, and we're making them all work together on the front end and the back end. Yet some of my clients say composable is really just taking the best of every SaaS and making them work together, but then you end up with 25 tabs open to do one process. I'm thinking you mean something else for composable.
So I think that composability in my mind as a concept, I always say, is just choose the best tool for the job. And so fundamentally, as a connector, open source is inherently flexible. And so as a connector, I totally agree with that. And then, I also do agree with the notion of not sort of extending you know, your like list of sort of MarTech stack to the extreme and sort of signing up to every SaaS platform and calling that composable, because that's, you know,
that's not
too
composable.
many tools becomes the wrong tool for the job. You know?
It's a mess.
Yeah, that's,
Right.
that's tricky.
Right.
And so I think composable means purely going, in my mind, once again, purely going to the best tool for the job. And I think that that's where the complexity lies. That's where you need to, you know, talk to someone who can actually help you. But generally speaking, what you'd be looking for is groups of functionality.
So can I tell you what I feel clients should approach Composable with? They should approach Composable with, this is what my staff and my process looks like, and this is what I'm trying to achieve. What do I need to do in a process? And then after that, when you've defined your process for achieving whatever level of marketing, 360 marketing, blah, 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 omni-channel, whenever you've achieved that, this is where we want to go, then start looking at the technologies.
Yes, and that's specifically why I say for the job, because I think that a lot of companies do go technology first, and in that they'll have a, you know, whatever it is, a CRM, a CMS, a DXP, or whatever their, you know, platform that they build everything off of, and then, you know, because of that single tech decision that's been made at some point, and then build a marketing process off the back of it that's forcing everyone into, you know, ways of working that are not natural to them, essentially. And so, yeah, I totally agree. I think it's process first, like figure out what you want to do, and then over top of that, you should be able to sort of mosaic together a number of technologies. Right. And I think open source is a really good way to do that. And I feel like you've got more to say on systems integration for some reason. So yeah, and it's and specifically open source in that space.
Right. So for those of us who have been around the block a few times, when we hear Composable, we're like, we've seen this movie before, right? In the 90s, we were still using middleware and we were doing system integrations. And it's the same concept. The beauty now, though, is you don't have to create everything as a bespoke process. Now, some platforms are trying to be so all-in-one, they're trying to be so monolithic as DXPs or content management systems, that it becomes hard to say, I'm going to use the first-party data module from this product, and I'm going to use the tracking from that product, and I'm going to use... So it becomes hard, which is why we, again, try to say, don't start with the technology, start with how you want to approach, what is your goal, and how do you want to be nimble? Because one of the problems, and now I'm going to shift and say, I think we've defined composable, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
One of
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. Please get in touch with one of us with any questions. But I think that's where it crosses from composable to the next segment of what we can talk about, which really is around what is the definition of headless or decoupled today?
Hey, I'm Tyler from Drewl.
Hi, I'm Kareem from Crowd Favorite.
And if you want to see more videos like this, head to the box below and click the link.